Asante Samuel Jr. is arguably the top corner still on the free agent market, and we know Miami desperately needs to add a corner via trade or free agency. Well, could it be Samuel Jr.? He has been linked and labeled as someone the Dolphins could go after, but also the best fit for Asante Samuel Jr. going to Miami, that is. So we'll talk about him, what the kind of labeling was, and if Miami should ultimately sign the injury-riddled corner, the former second-round pick. But it is Cinco de Mayo. Spam those fives down in the comments section. Why not? May 5th is always a good time. Instead of having margaritas, we're here having some fun talking Dolphins football. Get in the comments and spam those fives. But obviously, when we get back to talking about Dolphins football here, cornerback is the biggest need on the roster. Heading into the NFL draft just a couple weekends ago, we talked about defensive line, offensive line, and corner. Well, Miami did a good job of addressing the trenches on both sides, going with Jonas Savinaya and drafting 3 defensive linemen in round 1, 5, and 7. But they didn't really address corner in a big way. Yeah, they drafted Jason Marshall Jr. in the 5th round out of Florida, but he is not someone that I think you can bank on being a contributor right away, like a first or a second or even a 3rd round pick. You are going to have to rely on what you already had on the roster unless you sign a top tier corner on the free agent market. And especially when you think about the possibility and likelihood that Jalen Ramsey isn't on this roster when it comes to September NFL football, well, then it makes it even more sketchy because Cam Smith entering his 3rd year has given you nothing to make you believe he can be a top guy. Are you relying on former UDFA Storm Duck Ethan Bonner, the 5th round pick in this year's draft Marshall Jr., or the longtime free agent Artie Burns? Come on. You can't rely on those guys. So when you think about adding a corner that could not be a CB1, I don't think you could expect any of these 6 guys to be that, but at least provide some stability to that room and not make it arguably the worst cornerback depth chart on the entire NFL. We've talked a lot about Rasul Douglas. We've talked about James Bradbury. We'll see if they ultimately sign any of these 6 guys, but when we have labeled and gone through every single NFL free agent corner still available, every time my mind comes back to Asante Samuel Jr. He is my personal favorite. He also comes with the most risk out of any of those 6 guys because of his injury history. But when you talk about what could come back, you talk about risk reward. The reward for Asante Samuel Jr. is without a question the highest. But let's get into what the 33rd team and Ian Valentino said about Samuel going to Miami. So taking a low-risk flyer on Asante Samuel Jr. is the move a rebuilding roster should always make. Samuel only played about 26% of the snaps last year before suffering a shoulder and neck injury that he recently revealed is something still affecting him. If Samuel medicals eventually check out, he has to be on the team's radar. Only 25 years old, Samuel is a playmaking outside cornerback who thrives in man and zone concepts. His tackling is average for a cornerback, but his ball skills and stickiness, and coverage has made him a solid starter throughout his career. That's a huge upgrade for Miami. And as you see how he has been talking about Samuel, the reason he's still a free agent is his injury history. And he's dealt with neck injuries, shoulder injuries, back injuries, lower body injuries. He has been one of the most injury-riddled corners since he's entered the league. But when you watch his tape, you look at the statistics, the analytics, everything tells you he is a top 2 corner, not in football, but on a team. He is an outside guy that can cover, and he's been their lead guy for Los Angeles over the last 4 seasons prior to this injury and them going in different directions. They got some good play from Christian Fulton, Tarheeb Still, some other rookies, Cam Hart as well. But Samuel Jr. was their lead guy for the last 4 seasons. He could be that for Miami if the injury history doesn't pop up. So it is a gamble if you signed Asante Samuel Jr. because he might play 5 games. He might play 15. But would you take the flyer and sign Asante Samuel Jr.? Type Y if you would, or type N if you would not. To me, Miami has no choice. Unless you plan on rolling out those corners that we discussed earlier in the show, are you really going to go out and sign a Stephon Gilmore, a Mike Hilton? Mike Hilton, by the way, who's been primarily a nickel corner. Are you moving Kader Kohou to outside corner? That's a pretty ballsy move if Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel tried to do that. Like, to me, if you look at those 6 free agents that we talked about earlier, there really isn't a lead guy on the outside. Sure, Rasul Douglas can make some noise, Stephon Gilmore, but James Bradbury hasn't played in 2 years. Shaq Griffin's been an up-and-down guy. Douglas doesn't play any good coverage, and man, he was one of the worst corners on football last year. And Gilmore is 34, 35. Does he even want to sign with you if you are not a contending team? Like, Asante Samuel Jr. is the clear choice here. And I like him a lot because when he is on the football field, you heard, he is a playmaking corner. He is someone who thrives in both coverage, is when you talk about man or zone. And we'll go back to the last time he played a relatively full football season, which was in 2023, to talk about his film because he only played in 5 games last year, 26% of the season. He played 21.9% man coverage and 50.6% zone coverage. And his numbers reflect someone that can be a top corner in the NFL, specifically in man coverage. And that's the most fascinating thing about Samuel Jr., by the way. He is a smaller guy. He's 5'10 and change, but he's physical. He likes to get his hands on you, and he disrupts your route running with his ability to press you. Like in man, just over 50% completion percentage allowed. A QB rating of 61.3, and he takes the ball away. He had 2 interceptions. His zone coverage numbers in 2023 weren't as good, but they are still a pretty solid, serviceable cornerback 2 type of numbers. And I just want to continue to re-hone in on this. When we're talking about Samuel Jr., it is not the play in the reason he's still a free agent. It is just very specific to the fact that this neck/shoulder injury that was referred to by Ian Valentino is a lot more severe and causing cause for concern for these teams, whether they want to sign Samuel Jr. in free agency. And in this latest update that Mike Garafolo shared earlier in this offseason, right before the draft, really, in late April, he talked about how that neck and shoulder injury remains as the main reason why Samuel Jr. is not signed. And it only limited to him for the little 4 games that he played. But apparently, he's still dealing with stinger symptoms months after the injury rather than what normally occurs, where it's like a 2-3 week type of thing where you still feel it. He's still feeling it now. And if the medicals continue to reflect that, and he tells these teams that he still feels symptoms, well then, how could you feel comfortable signing him if this is going to be something that continues to stay with him? Because he'll never be on the football field. So that's why if a team does go out and takes the risk on Samuel, they have to be very confident that he'll be able to kind of shake those and get back on the field. We're going to wrap up the conversation on Samuel Jr. here in just 1 second. But make sure you get your Dolphins jerseys today at chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey. You can get the first-round pick, Kenneth Grant. His jersey number has yet not been announced, but when it does, they'll get it shipped out. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Tua Tagovailoa, all sizes, all type of jerseys, whether it's the standard white, the throwback aqua, normal aqua. Get whatever player's jersey you want down below. Once again, chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey is the link. That link is in the description and comments of today's video. Despite Asante Samuel Jr.'s injury concern to his shoulder, his neck, symptoms still lasting months after the season, Miami just simply has to still take the flyer on Asante Samuel Jr. because this depth chart is just so bad. Jalen Ramsey is likely going to be traded. And I hate to keep on harping on Cam Smith being a liability out there, but he didn't play his rookie season under Vic Fangio. And then in year 2, he only played about a 200 coverage snaps, was one of the worst graded corners in all football, and ultimately got benched in the final 2 weeks of the season for a UDFA Storm Duck. So I don't have any confidence in him. I don't. Jason Marshall Jr., the 5th-round pick, how can you trust him to play year one? Like, and if Jalen Ramsey's gone, we got major issues, man. And if you don't go out and sign a veteran corner like Asante Samuel Jr., like, what is the plan? And unfortunately, you are in the AFC. Because if you were in the NFC, you might be able to get by in the regular season due to this cornerback room. But in the AFC, playing Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Drake May in your division. Like, these quarterbacks that you have to face in the AFC are so significantly better and more dangerous than in the NFC. You have to have an ability to cover and allow your pass rush to hit home, or you have to have the best pass rush in football to where your secondary doesn't have to hold up that long. And although Miami made a pretty big effort to upgrade their pass rush and their front seven to maybe limit the exposure on this back end, I still don't think it's going to be as an elite of a unit up front as is required to match and hide the unit that you have on the back end. Like, we didn't even talk about the safety room on today's show. I like some of those moves in Ashton Davis, Iafatu Melifonwu, but they don't have a guy on the back end at safety, free roaming, taking the ball away either. So their cornerback room is weak. Their safety room has question marks. And if you don't make a move like Asante Samuel Jr., you could be in real trouble this upcoming season. That will do it for today's show. Appreciate everybody coming and hanging out with us. If you want more Dolphins coverage, hit that sub button. We're dropping videos on the daily, and if you're still watching, you clearly like what we're doing to some capacity, so subscribe today.